Carl Shonen. Halftime.
It is halftime here on San Antonio Sports Star, ESPN AM 1250, 94.5 FM. If you're tuned into our frequencies, I'm Carl Schoening. Rob Thompson, he's the program director. He gets the day off after R&R in the morning. James Pledger on the other side of the double pane glass, making sure that we sound good. He'll be my co-host today. This should be the show. This should be the show. This should be the show.
This should be show. What are we talking about?
Nothing. No. Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing. Oh, hey, thank y'all for spending your midday break with us. Bonus points if you got that Seinfeld reference. So we'll jump right into it. Not much Spurs news to really go into. They play their second home preseason game this evening against the Miami Heat. The Heat were in Houston last night. I've never heard of a second night of a back-to-back in preseason, but it is what it is. It's going to be the most glorified practice preseason game of the season for the Spurs. We'll see what happens with them. We'll be able to react to that on Monday. But the Spurs do announce some additions to the TV crews that y'all know and love. Obviously, Bill and Sean Elliott will be back on as the primary duo for Spurs television. Dan Weiss and Matt Bonner return to do studio work with Bally Sports Southwest and some pregame, postgame, halftime stuff during the games, whether it be at the AT&T Center or on the road. But a nice addition, y'all will recognize one of the biggest Spurs fans on national media for the longest time, Michelle Beadle, will be doing select broadcasts, as well as Fabrizio Alberto, who obviously you know him as a member of the 2007 NBA championship team with the Spurs, but he also did some Austin Spurs games last year at the Gubble with Dan Weiss. He ended up having a couple of those games taken away from him due to the snowstorm. But good to have Fabio back around. He is one of the more fun guys, one of those Argentina legends that the Spurs picked up. Oh, the humanity. Well, Jonathan C. joins us on YouTube. You can join us on Facebook, YouTube, my favorite, sasportstar.com. Interact with us, and we'll get to that. No way, Michelle Beadle. She is she's a UTSA alum. Yeah, I believe she is. Yes, that's correct. Thank you for joining us, Chris Hernandez. So, yeah, this might be breaking news. Came out within the last hour. But, yeah, she will be on board, and she's been a big Spurs defender. She had all those years with Colin Cowherd on Sports Nation. She was on Get Up there back when they decided to try and make that a 3-hour show. Much better call to make that a 2-hour show. But, yeah, now she's joining the Spurs television programming every now and again. I think she's been back here in San Antonio for a little while. But, yeah, that'll be good to see her face talking about what she's passionate about, the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, Michelle is San Antonio's favorite sister. I mean, she's always been kind of the voice for the Spurs out in the national media, and it's good to see her come and join the broadcast crew and do what she's passionate about here with the team that she's extremely passionate about.
Programming note, this will only be a 20-something minute long halftime. We will be taken away by the Astros versus the White Sox. Astros up 1-0 in the series as they got the win yesterday. I think their first pitch was at 3. They ended up wrapping that up sometime around 6:50 or somewhere in that range. Lance McCullers Jr. goes 6 2/3 shutout innings, only allowing 4 hits, and the Astros put up 6 runs to pick up the win.
Stop.
Why is that?
Lance McCullers Jr.
Is it not Lance McCullers Jr.?
I mean, he is a junior, but do we always call Patrick Mahomes the second?
It's just part of his
Lance
name.
McCullers.
Sure. It's just part of his name.
I know. It's just
that's not worthy of a stop. If I had given out wrong information,
it's any surname, like they're usually dropped.
I'm just going off the top of my head freestyle and what I remember. And his name is Lance McCullers Jr., but I do call him Lance McCullers when I do the sports updates and those kinds of things. I don't need to add the junior during then.
Was dominant.
Yes.
He was absolutely dominant in that game yesterday. He comes out and he's dealing. He doesn't walk anyone. He has one hit batter. I mean, he was dealing. And walks are the things that you kind of have to worry about with McCullers, because if people lay off that sinker that just drops off the table, I mean, they can work counts full. And I was a little concerned going into the fourth inning when he had over 80 pitches, but he managed to get through 6 2/3 and never seemed to struggle at any point throughout the entire ball game. So Lance was just dominant, and they need that, and they need a performance akin to that from Framber Valdez this afternoon.
And you can hear that game right here on San Antonio Sports Star. We'll have a pregame leading up to the first pitch. I think it's scheduled for 1:07. So obviously stay tuned in here to listen to your Astros. Hey, that's pretty cool.
The offense was banging yesterday too. Yordan Alvarez getting it going at the plate. Jose Altuve with one of the, like, there's that one slide that everybody talks about from the Dodgers where it's just smooth as silk and he kind of slides in, gets back up and walks off. But Altuve's slide functionally was incredible to get home.
It was poetry in motion, according to a tweet that I saw, and I agree. There was a great angle where you could see the throw coming, and he was able to duck out of the way of the catcher and then go behind the catcher with his left hand, tack that plate right before. That's a beautiful, I guess, 120 frames per second kind of shot, slow motion, and man, that Altuve. Altuve is one of the few guys that I would say he's worth paying to watch because he's this little guy. He can't be taller than 5'4". And
oh man,
his strike zone is like 18 inches.
Brutal.
Yeah, but
5'4". Why are you shorting a short guy?
I mean, how tall is he? What is he actually?
He's like 5'6".
Okay. Yeah, he's 5'6" in cleats.
You don't short a short guy.
Okay, fair enough. So he basically, though, I'm not dogging on him because it's even more impressive that he's such a small guy that can hit for power. He knows how to run the bases. Usually, hey, shout out to Jose Altuve. No disrespect intended.
Jose Altuve. I mean, it's not like he's Drew Eubanks, and I don't want to make him like 4'2" by the end of the show.
No. We'll meet in the middle and call him 5'5" barefoot and socks. All righty. Hey. We also got Kef Ciardello coming up. We want to get our weekly hit on the Bobcats. Good news, last week was a bye week, so we didn't have Kef on Friday. And the Bobcats, man, they were close. They've almost figured out a way to lose during the bye week. They did not lose during the bye week. In fact, I think they were, I don't know. In the COVID era, you can definitely lose during the bye week. All of a sudden, everybody has their bye week party. Friday night, Saturday night, the Square, 6th Street. Next thing you know, Tuesday, COVID testing rolls around and you don't have a linebacking group. Hey, sorry, we all went to the same party. Yeah, well, now we're going to have to play our wide receivers at the middle linebacker. That's not going to be fun. So, yeah, we'll talk to Kef Ciardello, see if he has any updates on it. B joins us. She says, yo, halftime. Jonathan C. on YouTube also says, what about Ken Griffey Jr.? We were talking about that.
That's the lone junior that, like, feels, okay, I got you.
Okay, I understand that. Yeah, he was able to work it. Do we have to know the senior in order to use the junior?
I think so, because Ken Griffey Sr. was a prominent name in baseball.
LeBron James Jr. When Bronny comes into the league. Is he Bronny
he's just going to be Bronny?
I'm going to call him LeBron James Jr. That's fair.
You would.
I probably would. Yeah. So anyhow, we appreciate y'all spending your midday break with us. We appreciate everybody for joining in on Facebook, YouTube. And yeah, no countdown today because I just want to jump right into it. Obviously, last night, the Rams defeat the Seahawks 26-17. I get an early jump on you as I had Robert Woods and Russell Wilson. Wilson gives me 9 points, but Robert Woods gives me 24, so it evens out. If you flip that, I'm okay with it. But I got to find a quarterback the way it's looking with Russell Wilson.
I'm okay with your early lead because your quarterback gave you 9 points. So I can weather that, and I have Robert Woods in multiple other leagues. So
you were happy about that. Yeah.
I'm not mad that Robert Woods is going off, and I also am very excited when I see Russell Wilson leave the game with 9 points. I'm like, that's eminently make-upable when your quarterback drops a 9-pointer on you.
That is probably a broken middle finger.
Apparently, it wasn't.
It wasn't? No,
it wasn't.
X-rays came back negative. I didn't hear this. Is this news?
According to and I just saw it. Pete Carroll says Wilson just has a badly sprained finger.
He can get over that in a week, I would think.
And that's weird because both quarterbacks ended up suffering finger sprains last night. We saw it with Matt Stafford as well. He had to get his taken care of, and we saw some balls sail on him throughout the game. So he talked about it post game about, having to dislocate, repop it in, and kind of get things back right with his finger. So this is a weird thing to see two quarterbacks with sprained fingers in the same game.
It's weird, but I wonder if it happens more frequently than we realize. Nowadays in social media with super zoom cameras, we can see all those kinds of things. Jonathan C. points out, I want to thank Gino for being Gino on that last drive. I owe you one. Just one.
Just one.
And Ben Valdez says, Ben News, Sixers wants 2 decades worth of first-round picks. I do want to get into the Ben Simmons rumor of the day before we jump into Texas NFL teams. So Shams Charania from The Athletic put out a whole 2-minute, 20-second video on Twitter today discussing what the latest is. So not only is Ben Simmons done with Philadelphia, he's actually emptied out his house and he's going to put it on the market soon.
Good for him.
The 76ers hope to have him back. But, if you're doing a trade request, you can't show up and be a professional because then why are they going to trade you?
Here's the thing. He can say that he's not playing for him again. He can move out of his house and do all of the things that he's trying to do. But according to the last report, showing those missing deposits into his account are already starting to get him rethinking his decision. So, I mean, I think he plays out probably a couple of months of the season before he's traded.
I would love to see him pull off his version of the James Harden fat suit because he's a little too Instagram model-y for the James Harden fat suit because he's got to do his own thing, but you can't just not. So if you're the point guard, how about you just turn the ball over a whole lot? How about you just shoot threes every single time if you're Ben Simmons? It's like, okay, I'll play. Let me shoot threes. He jacks up 5 threes in his first shift.
Yes.
Yeah. 5
That's
turnovers.
What we want. We want you to shoot, Ben. That's what they want.
Air balls it, bricks. Man, the Philly crowd would be relentless. It would be crazy.
They already are relentless. Did you catch AEW last night?
That was a headline yesterday, but was Edwin in yesterday? The AEW where they were saying F Ben Simmons chants? Yeah. So anyway, the only good thing about this whole 2.5 minutes, because, that's subjective whether or not he actually plays for Philly again, is that Daryl Morey and the 76ers apparently made an offer to the Portland Trailblazers that say, it was CJ McCollum, 3 first-round draft picks, and 3 first-round swaps, which means that Philadelphia will get the better of whoever has, the draft pick in those 3 drafts.
Whatever.
And the Blazers rejected that.
I would too.
Because if you're getting a player like CJ McCollum, you gotta drop that down to 2 first-round picks, no swaps, maybe 1.
Do you really, in your heart of hearts, believe that Ben Simmons is worth more than was a perennial top 3 MVP candidate for multiple seasons like James Harden?
No, but Harden also is one of those guys that should have gotten somebody like a Kyrie Irving in exchange back for him and maybe a draft pick.
I don't think Houston wanted a Kyrie.
No?
Because Kyrie, if they would have gotten a Kyrie, they would have lost their draft pick this year.
That's true because it was a top 3 or top 5. It was one of those kind of protections that they were able to squeeze it in by getting that number 2 overall pick. They wouldn't have gotten it back.
If Houston fell to 4, they would have lost their draft
to
pick.
Oklahoma City, correct? Because that was the Chris Paul trade. Yes. Yeah. So the thing is, if you get a franchise player for a franchise player, that's what you're aiming for. CJ McCollum is not a franchise player. He's an all-star caliber player, but he is not somebody that the 76ers should be glad to get if they don't also get the draft capital. And the 76ers, if they want a lead guard, apparently this was also in the Shams report, the Indiana Pacers are questionable to be involved in it. And then on top of that, maybe that means, who knows, other teams are willing to give up their guards as we move on to the start of the regular season. It looks like this will not be resolved before then if Daryl Morey has not come down off of his price of all of those draft picks. And that's your Ben Simmons rumor of the day. So let's get talking to the Houston Texans. They'll be hosting the New England Patriots. We'll also talk a little Cowboys Giants before we're joined by Kef Chardello here momentarily. As, man, we ended up talking a lot more than I thought. So quick, give me your thoughts on the Patriots and Texans.
It's going to be a bloodbath.
Bloodbath? By the Patriots? Yeah, they're finally finding their rhythm. No help for no Davis Mills bounce back.
They don't need to find their rhythm. They're playing the Texans. This is the plan.
Okay, I'll hold you to that because they're not trying to. All righty. And now we've talked about it, but this Dallas Cowboys versus the
New York Giants.
New York Giants, excuse me. New York Giants. Should be the Cowboys pretty easily. We had Mike McCarthy on this morning. He wouldn't really say anything except for Zeke's going to play. That was probably the big news this morning. Don't really think that anything much else came out of that except Mike McCarthy knew Rudy J's name.
Yeah, that was the big news. That was the breaking news of it all. But the Giants are such a weird team because they're just a couple of plays away from being 3-1 themselves. So you have to look at it in a sense of, could this be a trap game for the Dallas Cowboys? Is New York better than we think? They've just fallen victim to, an offsides penalty on a field goal to win it at the end. A late gaffe against the Atlanta Falcons that cost them a game. Like, they looked really good against the New Orleans Saints, and we're not quite sure who the Saints are, but I mean, this kind of feels trappy.
A good win, your first win of the season, followed by a win over the division leaders. That's the way that the Giants would like their season to start off in the winning streak. And one final point here before we give away these Kane Brown tickets, and I'll tell you how. Actually, how about this? You go ahead and give Kef Chardello a good call, and I'll tell you how you can win these Kane Brown tickets. Kane Brown Blessed and Free concert at the AT&T Center will happen on Saturday, October 16th. You can win a pair of tickets to this tour just by being caller number, I'm going to go ahead and say 6. Here on Halftime. The tickets are on sale at aegworldwide.com, or you can just keep it locked in here to San Antonio Sports Star. I'm sure we'll be giving away some at the Blitz, as you can listen to Jason Minix sometime after the Astros game. Hopefully it doesn't bleed too much into the Blitz, which starts at 4. And yeah, we'll be giving it away to caller number 6 here. So you can call into the Kielbasa Bacon phone lines, 210-656 3776, 210-656-ESPN. Win yourself some Kane Brown tickets. Be lucky caller number 6, and we will go ahead and get it to you. But we are now joined by the beat writer for the Texas State Bobcats from the Austin American-Statesman. He hosts the podcast Win Now or Get Bent. Kef Chardello. Kef, so here's my lead-in question. Were the Bobcats close to being the first team to lose during a bye week?
Oh, that's a very facetious question. No, I think they actually won because, they had 24 guys out with COVID. They get those guys back, but depth is no longer an excuse for them going into this week because they'll be fully loaded.
So they're 1-3 on the season. Obviously, one of those losses was to local FCS, the Incarnate Word Cardinals, and Eastern Michigan pretty much steamrolled them. I don't have the final off the top of my head, but what happened in that Eastern Michigan game since we didn't talk to you last week after that one?
Yeah, that Eastern Michigan one, they went up to Ypsilanti. They got a good chunk of those 24 players, I was saying. That 24 was out for the Incarnate Word game, and they got about half of those guys back. Some of them flew in that Saturday morning before the 1 p.m. kickoff. And it did not go well, specifically defensively. Offensively, they didn't have really any big issues, no interceptions by Brady McBride. It was really in that second half defensively, it just seemed like it was a bend till they broke type of situation. And and Ypsilanti Eastern Michigan was able to put up 21 points in that fourth quarter and really send it home. They went up there and they seemed defeated. It seemed like they had a hangover from that Incarnate Word loss. Wasn't a whole lot of effort, and it really fell apart for the Bobcats last game. But spoke to them this week. They're in much better spirits. They say they're ready to go and ready to finish the 2021 slate and not fall back to the 2021 issues. That's what Spavital was saying, that they'd slip back to their 2020 ways in these last two games. Now they're ready to look forward to 2021 football, I guess.
So we were joking about this beforehand. Bye-week parties going on. Maybe it's Friday night at the Square, Saturday night, and I think ACL was last weekend. What happens if just an entire group goes out, like the entire linebacker core is gone? What happens? Does that happen in college football?
Oh, it actually happened in Texas State last season. As they were one of the only team. I think they were actually the only team that played their full 12-game slate as scheduled. I think there were other teams that played 12 games, but Texas State actually, once they scheduled BYU and Boston College, they played all 12 games. And there was one game, I can't remember the exact one, but all their tight ends were gone. They had nobody to play tight end. So they took defensive end Jake Lynch, and they moved him at tight end. I think he caught a pass. And, he did some things all right, but I mean, as for the tight end position, you got to go find a defensive end, I guess. I mean, you saw it with, what was it last year, the Denver Broncos.
Oh, gosh.
They had
their entire quarterback room. Situation. They started some wide receiver off the practice squad.
Right. And, a valiant effort by him obviously didn't win that game. But, I mean, hey, to go out there and hadn't played quarterback since high school, I believe. I can't even remember who the player was. But, it's a bad – but honestly, that type of situation shouldn't even be happening in 2021. Everybody knows the protocol by this time. The vaccine is readily available, whether you have political leanings about that or not. It's a competitive advantage to get that shot. So, I mean, this does fall on the players and the coaches this go around to have so many people out, more so than it did last year. I mean, but now, Spavital was saying they should be all good. They got everybody back, and the problem should cease for the rest of the season. But, we'll see.
Kev Ciardello joins us on the Kielbasa Bacon phone lines. He is the beat writer for the Austin American-Statesman for the Texas State Bobcats. Real quick, Kev, could you tell us what you can about this University of South Alabama 3-1 squad that the Bobcats will be hosting at Bobcat Stadium this weekend? Yeah,
a really sound defensive team. They are one of the top teams in a lot of categories defensively, but the main one is third down defense. I think they're leading the country, if I'm not mistaken. 19% is what they're allowing offenses to get a first down on. They got a first-year coach, Kane Womack. He's a real young guy. He's 34. He's actually Spavital and Womack are the two youngest coaches in the country, and they're facing off tomorrow. It's kind of interesting. They combined for an age of 69 years old because Spavital's 35. So two young guys. He's a real defensive-minded coach, and he still has a really good offense to go on top of that. They run the ball a lot. They've got 10 rushing touchdowns. Even though they run the ball, they still have a really good passing attack, too. They have a South Carolina transfer quarterback. His name is Bentley. Pretty good quarterback. They don't pass a whole lot. When they do, they go to Jalen Tolbert. He's a guy that's actually projected to go in the second day of the draft in the second, third round. So he's someone to watch out for. Jalen Tolbert, he'll be playing on Sundays for sure. He actually tuned up the Bobcats real good last year, like 9 catches, 91 yards. So fun player to watch. But this South Alabama team, they're sound. I mean, they've lost one game. It was last week, 20-18, only 2 points to Louisiana, one of the top teams in the Sun Belt. So they're going to be ready to go. They're favored by 3.5, but I think they'll win easily.
Well, thank you, Kev. Texas State starts their Sun Belt Conference schedule. We appreciate you joining us. His podcast is Win Now or Get Bent. We appreciate you taking the time, Kev.
Hey, thank you. I'm surprised no Spurs questions, but I was glad to talk Bobcats.
We'll get to Spurs next week. We're about out of time here on halftime, so that was Kev Ciardello. You can follow him at Kev_C. Rejoined by James Pledger. Jonathan C. says thank you for the ticket, so you hooked him up, huh?
Yep, he's got it.
Awesome. Hey, man, this flew by. This was the fastest first segment I've ever done, and it's the only segment of the show, and we still have another minute, 30 seconds? Oh, geez. Well, can you fire off the theme at least and bring me into it? Hey, that was James Pledger. Thank you for Kef Jardell for helping us out. We appreciate y'all joining us on Facebook and YouTube. The Houston Astros taking on the Chicago White Sox Game 2 coming up next, and then the Blitz will be on right after that here on San Antonio Sports Star, ESPN AM 1250, 94.5 FM.
Fall baseball and crisp air and that special sound. A crack of the bat in Major League Baseball, the playoff run, and the Fall Classic. The World Series can be heard right here. What's going to make that memorable moment that stands the test of time?
Swing and a high fly ball. Right field. On its way out of here.
Follow it all right here. Major League Baseball's playoffs and World Series from San Antonio.